right now. I'm Anthony Bainey, running for Assembly in District 140 as a Green. And who am I speaking with?
Michael Mottern.
Awesome. And I've known Michael for a very long time. You want to talk about some of the work that you do currently at all? Or I know you do a lot of political activism.
Well, I started out with the YDS. Back then it was called YDS, Young Democratic Socialists of America. And I gravitated towards the Working Families Party and eventually occupied Buffalo during the Obama years. I am the vice president or vice chairman of Social Democrats USA currently, and I sat on the endorsement committee of the Working Families Party during the George W. Bush years.
Awesome. And so today, I think it's a great idea that you had mentioned how many third parties are in the United States, especially with just the political groups that you're active with, and there are a lot of third parties out there. So is there one party that you want to talk about specifically? I know you had mentioned how many third parties there are.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at the U.S. directory of political parties, not only is there 52 third parties and then three major third parties, along with the two-party system that we have, so it's Democratic and Republican, but we have a slew of organizations that surround themselves with political language and political party slogans like Socialist Party USA, Democratic Socialists of America, U.S. Democratic Socialists of America, Social Democratic Party, Social Democrats USA. You know what I mean? So it depending on what state you live in and how that state defines a third party is the only way a third party ever gets justice in this country. And it's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a very good argument that third parties are kept away from the ballot. Ballot access is a huge issue.
I would argue that they're kept out of the Constitution altogether because they're not mentioned. Because George Washington, and I believe it was George Washington hated party factionalism. Back then it was Aaron Burr and it was Alexander Hamilton. Those were the two-party factions. Those carved out what we know as the Democratic and Republican Party today. However, the first major third party to ever enter politics was in the 1800s. That was the Anti-Masonic Party.
Okay, thank you. That's something I actually didn't know off the top of my head. Thank you.
Around the turn of the century, third parties were prevalent in our political system because every system in the states had fusion voting, like in New York, where New York is a third party state. You know what I mean? Because third parties get a ballot line as opposed to a magnifying glass. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they do get a ballot line depending on the votes for the gubernatorial percentage or the amount of votes from the gubernatorial race. That's how it's set up, although the election law has changed in New York to include the presidential percentage, the amount of votes from the presidential race as well. So that's something that got tucked into the budget by the governor in the last session. But yeah, going back to what you had said about the fusion voting and how the third parties have been influenced in the U.S. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
To say that third parties didn't get elected to Congress around the 19-teens and 1920s would be fraud.
Yeah.
That would be fraud. Third parties used to be very prevalent in this nation, but not anymore. Corporations and Republican state legislators made sure it wasn't that way at all. Now it's voter suppression and knock off the progressive off the ballot and stop African Americans from voting. It's terrible. It's not draconian. It's denigrating.
Yeah, the voter suppression is definitely an issue, especially when a signature that someone used when they first registered to vote is held against them 10 years later to knock them off to be able to vote. That's ridiculous. People's signatures change all the time. The voter ID can be very suppressing. I don't agree with it.
Yeah. Do you know what the last third party was, Anthony, to win a state in the electoral college?
I believe the last major third party would be the Socialists in the United States, Socialist Party.
Close, but no cigar. Believe it or not, it was Progressive Party USA, 1924.
Oh, wow, thank you. I learned something.
Harold LaFollette and Burton Wheeler, Wisconsin populists and socialists and Greens and conservationists and small business people and farmers. They all supported that.
Yeah, that's extremely important to talk about. I mean, how did, the Progressive Party USA help influence any policy within that time period?
Well, Native Americans became citizens that year. I can tell you that much.
That's
That's the
extremely
year Native
important.
Americans got voting rights because they became citizens officially in 1924, according to I can't remember which act it was. The Indian Inclusion Act, I think. I think Indian Inclusion. I think it's Indian Inclusion. I can't remember. I'm sorry. Don't quote me on that.
Well, I could do better with my knowledge on, the legislative, you know, not just the legislative policies, but, the actual bills that became enacted, especially for, minority and, for people of color. I mean, I know
Yeah,
obviously about the civil rights laws and the voting rights laws,
yeah,
and but I mean, there's been a lot of change that has happened from smaller individual people and not necessarily federal laws, but at the local level, especially when you had the fugitive slave laws, you had people that were ignoring those laws and, helping
yeah,
slaves to get the freedom. So, I mean, there's always been voices outside of the political majority, I guess you could say.
yeah. By 1914, believe it or not, can you hear me, Anthony?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hear you.
Okay. By 1914, uh, places like Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas were straight up socialist colonies, believe it or not, by 1914. They're not the Republican bastions they are now. And then a good book to read would be Thomas Frank's What's the Matter with Kansas? And it'll show you how socialists used to be a long time ago. Remember, 1914 was 100 years, over 100 years ago. So that was big, but it wasn't big enough because it didn't spread out as much. But in the rural areas, what was a psalm or a sermon was go tell it on the mountain where economic hardships will be gone. And that was the sermon of the day. And although the lay people couldn't, or the common folk couldn't understand Das Kapital, what they could understand was the economic injustice message that came with the sermon.
Yeah,
And
I think
that was the socialist colonies of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas.
yeah, I think there was some elements of populism that was surging around that time period. Wasn't that the same time period that William Bryan Jennings was running as well?
I think so. Don't quote me on it, but I think so.
So there was elements of populism that I can definitely recall within.
Victor Berger was elected on the socialist ticket in Milwaukee. Milwaukee was once a socialist colony, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yeah, Milwaukee was. That's when Victor Berger was elected congressman, and then they tried to deny him his seat.
Yeah, so I mean, I could definitely touch up, on my, 20th and 19th century knowledge of third
Labor
parties.
history, yeah.
I really definitely could. I'm more familiar with third parties in the last 10, 20 years.
Well, I'll tell you, in the House of Representatives, there is a link to third parties in the House of Representatives and the history of every third party that was in the House of Representatives, because that was quite a few. You know what I mean? Considering the history of the United States.
Well, and I mean, there was I'm sorry, there was like the anti-slavery party in terms of those who wanted to, get rid of slavery.
Erie County had a free soil party around the time of Millard Fillmore and the Dred Scott decision.
Oh, wow. Well, I definitely had
Yeah,
seen earlier someone had posted about someone who was very outspoken in Erie County about Millard Fillmore's, enacting, the fugitive slave law.
yeah. It was. I think it was. It was. It was. What do you call it? It was a reaction to the Dred Scott decision. I think. And I think it was a negative reaction to the Dred Scott decision as opposed to like, oh fuck, he got free in Kansas. Oh no, the Supreme Court overturned it. Oh no, and then that's how bloody Kansas happened. And then the Dred Scott decision I think made Millard Fillmore run as a know nothing in 1859. He made Millard Fillmore run as a know nothing because it's like no, Dred Scott's not a man. He's inhuman. He's a slave. He's property. And that's the crux of it.
Yeah, I mean, even that's 3/5 is in the Constitution. I mean, it's even though obviously it's been penciled out, it was there,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of
Well,
things.
take a wild guess who the Free Soil Party around Millard Fillmore's time. Take a wild guess who they supported for president and not Millard Fillmore. Take a wild guess.
I can't recall.
Democrat Martin Van Buren.
Oh, he's not popular.
Not popular at all, but he was Democrat Martin Van Buren. That's who the Free Soil Party through their support behind. And the Free Soil Party created the modern day Republican Party with the Democratic Party and the Whig Party.
Well, you definitely have a lot of knowledge on, the political history of third parties, and that's
In
important for
America
people.
and Britain and Europe, yeah. In America and Europe and Britain.
And so I think you're trying to work on a book to try to garner support for third parties in a more parliamentary system, correct? Is what you're saying?
I did. I did. Am I coming in clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I don't want to, because I did this for Blue Politics on, I forget what, it was on Discord when I did that. And because I think my, what do you call it, my microphone, which is my phone that I have connected to my telephone,
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why it's so staticky. So I'm kind of nervous. I'm sorry.
Oh,
But
you're
no,
okay.
the politics of America, yeah, is derived from the Free Soil Party in Erie County and throughout the country. Yeah.
And I mean, you're very knowledgeable. So I mean, you're working on a book to try to garner support for third party, correct? To try to get a more parliamentary system, weren't you saying? Or
It would have to. Well, I talked to my buddy David about it. It would really have to be the Green Party with the Libertarians and maybe the Constitution Party, because it would have to be those major three, along with the other third parties which don't get along. And are like kind of fascistic and very right wing in some states, and then they're very left wing and then very radical in other states. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So if you were to get a parliamentary system on the mall which could accommodate these delegates and these party chairs, who could elect in a proportional representation system, would that be better than just suing for the right to get into the stupid Democrats and Republicans corporation debate? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think a parliamentary system is a good step forward. I do think so. I think that Germany has a good uh, parliamentary system because the Greens have members of parliament that are starting to increase in their number there, and you're starting to see them, uh, get off of lignite, which is the dirtiest form of coal, and push more for solar and for alternative forms of energy. Uh, so I would say that the more that people have representation is the better. I think that right now we're seeing two very local, polarized factions in the United States that have the voice, but they're not representing. They're not representative of the majority of the people, in
Well,
my opinion.
remember, what is Party of Socialism and Liberation besides the group behind Washington D.C. or just in Washington D.C.? What is Socialist Workers Party besides a cult? What is the Constitution Party besides anti-gay and pro-gun? What is the Libertarian Party besides anti-welfare? You know what I mean? So can letting these groups meet on the mall in a parliamentary system and try to force Congress to bend. I really want to know if they could do that, and I hope they could do that, because that's the only way third parties are ever going to have representation in this country, which doesn't represent them only at the state level. If the state traditionally allows for them, like in Pennsylvania, they have the Prohibition Party. Well, that's just something that went on in Pennsylvania for a long time, so they have it. Well, in Kansas, there's just two parties, Democrat and Republican. There's no third party.
Yeah.
Nothing. So it depends on if that state allows it or not. And in the Constitution, they're not mentioned. And it's like, why are we shutting out a million people of registered voters?
Oh, I agree.
That's not democratic. That's not democracy. We are shutting out a million independents in New York with a closed primary system, and we're shutting out a million voters when we shut out third parties.
I agree with you, and I think that people feel disenfranchised and just choose not to vote a lot of times.
Yeah, but what are you going to do at Occupy when the Green lady comes and she wants you to back the Green candidate? They're not going to do it, and she's crying because she thinks that she's being left out. You know what I mean? Do you remember that?
Not specifically, but I mean, people do sometimes feel marginalized, I guess you could say, or outcasted. Sometimes they could feel that way. And I think that, Occupy was a movement for mostly themed on economic justice with the term 99%. I think that those who were political that were trying to get support from Occupy, I don't think that was necessarily a good idea, because that's a movement of people and not necessarily those trying to run to the ballot box. I think they've kind of seen the results of the ballot box and are looking past that. So I think there's different times to try to garner support from people too.
Well, I mean, Bernie's revolution did happen after it. That was as political and ballot box driven as anything, especially when the socialists rocked the midterms, and I was seen as crazy.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, Bernie did have a, more of a platform to speak off of after the Occupy movement, and then one could argue it was a reaction to the Republicans having the House and the Senate. So I think that there's many different ways to look at different movements, especially political movements, and those that are driven by grassroots people.
Yeah. Well, can we have a third party's delegates? And I want a whole election. I really do in my novel. I want a whole election where literally every third party comes together in a parliamentary procedure atmosphere on the mall. Doesn't even need a hut or a tent to keep back the rain. They can hold hands and then do legislation and all of those stuff and join coalition. Especially, hold on, my hands. Hold on.
Well, no holding hands until the COVID-19 situation's over. But I agree with you. I think that would be interesting. And I think that even if nothing was codified or, enacted into law, how about just getting them all to have a recorded session where they discuss the issues that are divisive, the issues that are agreed upon, and even issues that nobody has considered but are also important that maybe they could come to agreement on.
Believe it or not, Anthony, I've been studying this for so long with the politics1.com directory. I noticed that if you had all these groups together, one thing they would have consensus on would be anti-war. I know that for a fact, especially because it's draining the budget. And these third parties wouldn't get any money for democracy or any special elections, anything like that. Any accountability, any type of money for elections. That's how it's driven. You gotta have money for elections, and you gotta have proportional representation for third parties, but you gotta have full public financing of campaigns, overturn Citizens United for equal rights. Full public financing of campaigns. That's where Anthony gets $500 just for running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand, and New York does have a public matching that just got enacted last year. So we'll see how that gets implemented. I have a little bit of worries about it because I don't think it does enough for limiting, donations that may have came from corporations or outside PACs, or what people call dark money. But
Yeah.
for candidates or for incumbents that have enough donations as it is, maybe there should be a little bit of a limit on what the matching is there. And I don't think that the commission that put together the findings to come up with the legislation, I don't think that was a really, I don't think it was a good way to for that to be put together. I didn't agree with it. I think it was rushed.
Mhm. Oh, okay. No, I get it. Like, I mean, it all boils down to that. I mean, you don't want dark money in politics, and you don't want money in politics. You want it so that an independent candidate has the opportunity to run, not so that a Republican can suppress the vote and say winner take all. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think this important topic was great to discuss, and
Yeah.
I hope that your novel is something that comes to fruition very soon, and hopefully people can, get their hands on it to read.
Well, did you go to the U.S. directory of political parties and take a look for yourself?
I'm definitely going to. Thank you for sharing that link.
Okay. No, it's on the blog. That's the blog of the Twitter feed. And then there's a section on political parties. They're just the American ones. There's every political party. The Working Families Party is listed. Social Democrats listed. DSA is listed. Conservatives are listed. The Greens are listed. Every radical group's listed. It's really cool. And then they give you a hotline or a link to every third party that's running a presidential candidate in which third party is nominating which person. Like for the Socialist Party, if you go to the race, it'll say how Howie Hawkins is getting the green ticket and he's getting the SPUSA ticket too.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's the group that broke away from Social Democrats in 1972. So and then Howie Hawkins, when I met him, Howie Hawkins said, yeah, he says I did a rally for my pickup truck where it was Social Democrats USA. Back then it was DSOC, which was the precursor to DSA, DSOC, Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee. And then it was SPUSA led by Howie Hawkins, and then all three of the groups were just on the back of a pickup truck talking about labor rights.
Well, that's how you got to get the message across. Well, I hope
Yeah,
people, pay attention to third parties, and I hope that they look into issues like ranked choice voting, and I hope they get involved locally in
exactly.
Buffalo.
Exactly.
Well,
Brainy third parties don't have a chance if they don't think about this. It's a very serious topic because we don't want to disenfranchise anybody, especially good people like you.
yeah, I do appreciate it, and thank you for your time. So I hope everyone gets involved.
God bless you, Dave.